In May 1940, France undergoes the heaviest defeat in its military history and is still a trauma nowadays. In about 1 week, the French armies, which were considered one of the best in the world, collapses. Not only most of it has been made prisoner due to the sickle stroke from Manstein, sickle stroke, which I represented. Je sais pas si on voit pas bien. Tac. My point doesn't work. So the sickle stroke is the movement made by the Germans, and that means that the French army was made prisoner and could not really keep fighting. Thank you. Merci. So this is the sickle stroke movement, and that explains most of the French army was in the north. So contrary to the First World War, it was almost impossible for us to continue fighting on the French soil. So the French military prestige is deeply undermined. At first, nobody understands the true reasons of the defeat, be it amongst the French, whether the Allies nor the Germans. That leads to different postures on how to react to this tragedy. This episode will have an influence on the way French soldiers are regarded inside and outside the country. At first, many will conclude that whether the soldiers have lacked courage, whether the officers failed at thinking correctly the war, or maybe they had been betrayed from the rear by civil society. Eventually, that victory for Hitler, that victory ended up being a curse for Hitler, for it led him largely overestimating his own tactical skills and the Reich's capacity. That led to Russian invasion, Russia being invaded by the Germans, and Barbarossa would be his grave. Italy would be France's revenge. So 4 years only after the French did not defend seriously the Ardennes, you know the mountain that we did not defend seriously enough, the Germans were surprised in the Aurunci Mountains, which we will see in a few slides later. So the question is, how did we get to this point? So next slide. So, as we told, France's metropolitan soil has been occupied around 2/3, and we suffered a drastic limitation since the armistice we signed on the 22nd of 1940, because Hitler wanted to humiliate France, just like we did after First World War. So the armistice that is imposed to French is the reverse that the Germans suffered themselves. And the aim of Hitler was that the French should only have forces to strict defense, so very small forces. Only 1,000 men in France and only 30,000 in France, in the empire. We will see that afterward. No heavy navy and no modern armored units. But hopefully for us, and unfortunately for Hitler, this did not happen that way. So next slide. Because France still has an empire. Even if it splits right from the beginning into two parts, because as you know, General de Gaulle refuses the armistice and continues fighting in England, and already a part of the empire splits and follows de Gaulle. A few islands in the Pacific, and the equatorial part of the French Empire follows de Gaulle at the end of the year 1940. But in both cases, this empire will be the base of the rebuilding of the French military. Next. And the problem is for the Germans that they cannot control this empire. they need the French. That's the reason why they will let the French having more troops than it was supposed to be at the beginning, because they hope that the French will defend it against the Allies. They cannot take it and defend themselves. So they think that the French will do it. And that's the reason why, at the beginning, we should have 30,000 men at the armistice for the whole empire to defend, and we will have 130,000 troops allowed by the Germans. You can go next. And the authorities under Vichy governments, here it's Weygand, will take some cases like Marcel Kébir, for example, to argue to the Germans that there's a threat coming from the Allies and we need more troops to defend it. So, next. And fighting resumed quite quickly because the Operation Torch, I don't go in the details in November 42, but almost as soon as the Allies come in the northern Africa, the rest of the empire that had stayed under the loyalty of Vichy joined the combat. So the forces of the French are allied. So the French helped the Allies with 75,000 troops, mainly as a cover of the disembarkment of the Allies in Tunisia. So it gives already some of experience to the French troops, which will be useful afterwards in Italy. Next. So it's something very important that is not very well known. It's the effort that has been made by the people living in Northern Africa, and especially the Europeans, to rebuild this army, because as you can go next. As you may have heard, it's mostly soldiers from Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, but you rarely hear that. Next, go next. Next. In the end, we have 45% of Europeans serving in that troops, and it's very important because it's not only colonial troops, like it's mainly said. The effort, the patriotic effort given by these people is absolutely astonishing, because you see 2/3 of the population, European population, that was in age to fight in Algeria has been mobilized. It's not something common. That leads to at least a little more troops from Morocco, Tunisia, and Algeria, but a lot of what we call pieds noirs. And the total strength would be maximum 130, but mainly around 113 French troops fighting. Next. So it's very far from a myth that is unfortunately too commonly widespread, that France has used those population of the empire as cannon fodder. This is absolutely false, and it was also false during First World War. So even for the losses, I won't have time to go in the details of the losses of the battles, but the losses are exactly the same for white troops and Northern African troops, exactly the same. So no cannon fodder. And it's very sad because you know that there are lots of descent of immigrants in France, living in France nowadays, and they don't know this story. Next. So this is what looked like the number of armies we had before the beginning of the campaign. So at the end of 1943, the French, Giraud was the head of the state at that time. We had around 500,000 soldiers available, but they could not be directly engaged in combat, because even if they had still some combat skills, they needed equipment, and that equipment will be given mainly by the Americans, and they needed to be interoperable with mainly the Americans. So we needed to be trained by the Americans, like for example, amphibious assault, but being capable to fight together. And we needed especially instructors on the technical skills because we did not have any mechanized and motorized armies, so the Americans gave us all this instruction. And the Unfair Agreement in January 1943 with the Americans allowed us to have 11 divisions rebuilt entirely and equipped by the Americans and the Brits. And we chose a few of them. So next. We chose, next again, those 5 divisions. And I said 5 because here, it's a detail for you maybe, but you have heard of the Tabor, the Goumier, and sometimes you don't know what it's like. So the reason why it's not written division and so on, it's because there were hidden troops. There were troops trained under the German rules, and they did not have military names because there should not be military ones. But you can consider it as a division, a whole division. So, and like a small a mountain division. That's why I translated in English as mountain division, so as you to understand. So we chose first Free French Division, naturally, second Moroccan Infantry Division, third Algerian Infantry Division, and the 4th Mountain Infantry Division. And it's very important, why do I show you that, is because at the beginning, we wanted to build the whole mechanized and armored corps. That was the French intention. And the reason why we changed is that when General Juin saw in September, at the beginning of the operations, that the Allies had a lot of difficulties to move with these mechanized and armored brigades, it chose to put the emphasis on infantry and maintenance skills. So he asked the English to build them a mule combat group, because the English were the best and had already 10,000 mules, and we had almost none. The Americans already too have mules, but so we built that, and we chose. Can you go on a bit more? Take. More. And this is the name of the commanders of each division, so that you know who were the main leaders. So General Brosset for the 1st division, Dodi for the 2nd, Montsabert for the 3rd, Sévez for the 4th Mountain Division, and Guillaume for the Goumier. And go on two more. And the most important man, General Juin, and another one, which is not as much known, but it's important to speak about him because he's the head of the headquarters, and he plays a very important role in the design of the operations. And Juin is a very important man because he's maybe the best of his generation in Saint-Cyr. He was the major of Saint-Cyr, and General de Gaulle had a lot of respect for him. He's the same promotion in Saint-Cyr as General de Gaulle, so as you to know. So they know each other. So Juin chose those 5 divisions to go in the campaign because the decision made with the Americans, Eisenhower, was that we would not wait for all the army, the French army, to be rebuilt, and the French should resume the fight as soon as possible. So next one. So here is a very brief slide on the phases on the rebuilding of the material unfair agreements. It was just to show you that before the unfair agreements in late 1942, before Operation Torch and the landing of the Allies, there had been secret agreements with the Americans that all this would be done. So July 1943, important because it's the fusion with the Free French, and there's only one army, French army left. And the rest I already told you. Next. So this permits to move from symbolic actions to actual deeds, because the Free French did not have enough power. General de Gaulle had a small army, and he couldn't change the war itself. But now there's a real huge power, so things would change. And even if Bir Hakeim here is already something impressive, but it doesn't change the war, you know. Here, it would be different. So, very quick summary on the French military deeds in Italy. We will see that on maps, and it will be much more clearer. But so that you know briefly. So September, Sicily, just one tabor participating. From the end of December of 1943 and January 44, covering the north. Well, we'll see that it's very boring. So go next, we will see. That will be much more pleasant. So here is an overlook of the campaign. You can go on because there are many animations. So at first, the disembarkment, the landing in Sicily, so we only have one tabor, very small. A tabor is the equivalent of a regiment for French. Go on. So the two major landings, Avalanche and Slapstick, for mainly the Brits and the Canadians that were supposed to move in that direction. Next. And after a dynamic phase, you have already seen many times, the army stalls to the Gustav line. And next. And the most important actions of the French will occur in this small area. Go on. So the first one in the north of Cassino, then Belvedere. Then we will see that in the end, the breaching of the Gustav line in the south. So next. So this was the initial plan, the initial Allies plan, and you will understand why the Valley of Liri had been chosen. Go on. Up. Go on. Up. So the initial plan was to go to Rome via the Liri because it's the quickest path. It's very logic. When you see the mountains and the geography of Italy, it was absolutely normal. But the problem is the Allied thought that with the very superiority of their materials, mechanized and so on, that it would be very quick. But the problem is this valley is only 8 kilometers large, and we will see that later. That means that each artillery troops on the north and on the south can hit anywhere a US or British crossing the river. So it's very easy for the Germans to defend this line, this Gustav line, and they have had months to do so. So go on. So first action of the French was in the north. No one remembers that, but we had a few actions in the north. Go on. Our role was to cover the northern part of the disposal of the Allies. Okay. So go on. So the first try on the Garigliano on the south by the 10 UK Corps, and the second US Corps 2 days later. Go on. And the aim was, like I told you, but it's a fail. Go on. It doesn't work. Go on. So, second try. Here is the battle 25. There has been the Anzio landing, and here the French are operating north of Cassino in Belvedere. That's a very important military deeds for the French, and we will see that later on, but it's a failure too. But here is something very important to notice, because in the south, commonly we say those attempts were failures, but there's something that has been done very important. The British have conquered the bridgehead, and this bridgehead in the south will be the base from which the French armies will breach the Gustav line. So this is very important. And if you could have a map very more precise, you could see that the English had conquered just one mount that was the beginning of the defenses that were used by the Germans. So that was a serious corner in the Gustav line. Next. Conquest of the Belvedere. Next. So Belvedere, unfortunately, I won't have time to say everything on Belvedere because it would be a very interesting battle to describe. And it's an action that concerns roughly a regiment, the 4th RTT, donc Régiment de Tirailleurs Tunisiens. That means Tunisian Tirailleurs Regiment. And at that time, a regiment was pretty big. It's 2,700 men, and more than half of the regiment has been out of combat. Most of them, many of them, were killed. And what they've done is quite outstanding. You have to read a few things about that because it's something that's really impressive. The suffering of the soldiers, both Tunisians and Europeans, both. There was not only just the Tunisian soldiers fighting and the French white man waiting, and no, not at all. They all suffered very long time, sometimes not eating, not drinking for 2 days, and then even attacking. So it's very impressive what they've done. Next. So this is a closer look so that you can understand. It would be another map would be more useful, but I don't have time to explain everything. But this battle in Belvedere was a covering because the casino mount couldn't be taken if there was a threat coming from here, because you don't see it, but there are German units on the north that could have come here and prevent the main actions of being succeed. And it was very dangerous, but I don't have time to explain. So next. This is the destroying, but you know, the destroying of Casino, the manned casino. And the consequence of Belvedere is very important because it's the first time that the French do something that the Allies see. So as I told you in the beginning, there was doubt. Is the French army still capable of fighting? And the answer is yes. And it's obvious that it still has a lot of fighting spirit, that they still have tactical skills, and moreover, most important, that it can achieve some results in the mountains. So here is a photograph of General Juin, symbolic because it's not like that he decided the plan, of course, but it's interesting. Next. So here is the initial plan, Diadem, that was supposed to be done. So go on, and you will see the changes of the tactics that was supposed to be done by General Clark. So go on. Go on. So you see the idea of the Allies was to concentrate the troops, because the two attempts before had failed. And there was the landing of Anzio, go on, that was supposed to help. Go on. They were supposed to coordinate here, and then the Germans would have been destroyed, and the route to Rome would be open. But next. They still had a lot of disadvantages of backdraw. Still many problems with this plan. So go on. It was too frontal. Go on. The assault front was too narrow because it was only from here to here, you know. And General Juin thought it was too slow because General Juin had understood that we could bridge the German lines, but we had to be quicker, a lot more fast, because the relief of the troops had been done at a level, Army Corps size. Army Corps size is very high level, a lot too slow. And we had to stretch the defenses of the Germans, because what had happened many times, at each time we had tried to bridge the line, the Germans could send reinforcement. And the reason is that the Germans had the best tactical skills at this level. And we would take a mount, bridge the line, and the Germans would go reinforce it right away. And then everything is to re-begin another time. So General Adjoint told, we have to stretch the German forces to attack in a larger front, and we have to be a lot more quicker. As soon as we have made a bridge, we don't stop. So the relief will be at a very lower level, at the division level. So go on. So the proposition of Juin is to enlarge the front. Go on. Go on, go on. And to go through the Aranci Mountains. The Petrella Mount and the Aranci Mountains were considered by the Allies until now impassable mountains. That's why they had been avoided in the tactical reflection. Go on. Go on, go on. Go on. So the idea of Juin is, in order to be on the Zenger line before the Germans could transfer strength, so that they would be obliged to evacuate the Gustav line and Cassino so as not to be enveloped, because if they go on, they will understand. If we are quick enough on the Zenger line and we envelop the Germans on the rear, they will be obliged to leave the Cassino. That's the idea of Juin. And the advantage is, you see, that road can be used. Because in the initial plan, as those mounts were controlled by the Germans, it was impossible to use this south route because it was under threat. With these new plans, you can use 2 sectors more, so more stretch for the Germans. Go on. And use surprise, back. Use surprise, so the mountains. The Germans thought that Petrella Mounts was impassable too. And they did not have forces enough to have garrison on it. So Juin knew it, and he wanted to have surprise. Go on. So this is how that happened. The route that have been used by the French. So go on. All the divisions. Go on, because it's yeah, you can go. You will understand the fights that have occurred. Also, I'm sorry for the Brits and the other armies not represented. It's just a focus on the French. Doesn't mean that doesn't happen. Okay, go on. So the first attempt doesn't work. The day later, the French try again, and that works. So they cross the mountains, and here have the mules play a vital role. Without any mules, it wouldn't have worked. And I know it because I'm a specialist in logistics, and I've studied that in the French archives, and I can tell you how exactly that happened. They crossed that mount, and as soon as they arrived to Esunia, the mechanized way, GMC trucks were replaced. So the mules couldn't do anything. So it was very well calculated. And afterward, the same was done from Petrella. And then the logistics came back to, because the mule couldn't do anything. But it was very slow, but quick enough to surprise the Germans. No, it's very complicated to explain, but. And the Germans tried to counterattack, but it was not enough. So this is their German general. So the military consequences right away is that the Gustav line is broken, the tactical situation is unraveled, and the dynamic progression can go on further. Rome is captured, but the Germans manage to escape full destruction. French Corps can participate on time to the landing of Provence and has acquired a lot of experienced troops, which will be the core of the next army. Go on. So this is the next phase. Go on. So the German retreats, and the Allies choose back. So the Allies choose to go to Rome instead of destroying the Germans in the north. So the Germans can continue. Go on. Rome is liberated. Go on. But unfortunately, it's a short-lived victory because just afterwards, the landing of Normandy and the Operation Overlord, and it completely overshadowed this victory. So go on. And the following is that the direct exploitation at a strategic level cannot be done because some forces are taken from Italy to Provence. That means that the Allies don't have enough troops left to destroy the Germans in the north. It's a political choice, and I'm not saying it's a mistake, but it would be very long to explain. Go on. So we cannot exploit. We could. There had been theories or questions of whether we go to Ljubljana from the. Well, we abandoned that, and we cannot go directly like that. So, go on. So until July, there's a French pursuit corps that follows until Sienne, and I haven't represented it, pursuit corps. And then the French troops are going to Naples to join the disembarkment in Provence. Go on. A victory of logistics, because there were mainly logistical reasons for the landings in Provence, you know, because it is linked to the landing of Normandy for the capacity of the ports of Marseille to carry supplies. That was a very important fact in the reflection. So the army of Italy joins other troops from Northern Africa and takes part at the campaign of France. You can go on so that the people can see the French actions in these campaigns, and then participates in the invasion of Germany, the crossing of the Rhine, and all those things can have been possible due to the experience acquired in Italy. And in the end, we have around 1.3 million of men in arms, so it's a completely change from 4 years ago, nothing to be compared. So go on. So I'm almost in the end. So the consequences is that in the end, France is considered full victors and sits at the tables along with the other allies, signing the German capitulation. So it's very important. And go on. France, go on. We'll even have a role in the occupation of Germany, and that has consequences until nowadays, because those deeds, those facts, are the reason why France still has a seat at the UN Security Council, and it's still a great power. I mean, you can see what I mean. This has still a lot of importance for France today. Go on. So, to conclude, this campaign for France is very, very important, has a very important role in our history, but history of all the other nations too. Yet it's unfortunately overshadowed by Overlord and the campaign of France, and even in the young generation in France, they don't know. Even the débarquement of Provence, very, very few young people know this. Only the landing in Normandy is known. It's sad, but so is it. But the good news is it's still firmly alive in the French army, especially in the officer corps. So go on. And we use this campaign as a tactical sand field. We train in Italy every year, and you know that because you see us, you've seen us for 15 years around now. And we come to Italy, and the war school college, École de Guerre Terre, comes to Italy every year to do a battlefield tour, but not exactly a tour to visit. It's what we call exercice historique terrain. That means we directly train at headquarters tactical skills. That they visit, they learn history, but they are using it to develop their own missions they learn. That's me here. That was just last month. Okay, next. And every year we made a ceremony in Venafro in souvenir to our soldiers. Go on. As you see, many Muslim tombs. And the memory of the units that took part in this campaign are still alive because what you see is the symbol of the 3rd Infantry Algerian Division that was in Italy. And it's still the emblem of the 2nd Division, which is called 3 Division. We only have 2 divisions in the French Army nowadays. And we recreated divisions in 2016, you know. And they were given the traditions of this unit, and this division is the one that took part in the Belvedere battle. So, go on. Go on, go on. So this is the final slide, final conclusion. This campaign of Italy is the harshest in French. Is one of the. It's a mistake. It's one of the harshest in French history, and it's the cornerstone of its rebirth, both military and politically speaking. It's the culmination of a long preparation by the French authorities in Africa, and it was achieved thanks to remarkably well-conceived and conducted maneuvers, as I showed you, and thanks to the support and open-mindedness of our allies, because without the American and the British help with the equipment, then nothing would have been possible. And open-mindedness, because they couldn't have told us, "You're nice guys, French, we like you, but we know how to do war, so your plan, we don't care." But it was not the case. Open-mindedness is very important. It's something we have to notice, the difference with the totalitarian regimes. It's very important. And the final toll is very heavy. As you see, 41,000 troops out of combat on around 120,000 men, or almost 1 in 3. Most of them killed, or a lot of disappeared. So it's a few people know that, and many German soldiers that were captured and during those battles, they told that it was harsher than in Siberia. You know, its campaign of Italy was very rough, militarily speaking, and the ratio is almost twice that the French endured during the campaign in France afterwards, because nothing was as difficult as in Italy afterwards, because the ratio of forces and the geography was completely different in France and Germany. So it was much easier afterwards. So that was my conclusion. Thank you for listening to me.